So welcome to our overview, updates, and discussion session on the BASE SEL courses. This is presented by Kathy Hakes-Fastner, who's a consultant for BASE education. Just a couple announcements before we begin. If you want to go to the next slide, Kathy.
Sure.
In case you didn't see the good news in today's newsletter article, we no longer have a limit on the number of student accounts for your program. So yeah, if you are using this with students for distance learning, students working independently, asynchronously, you can create as many student accounts as you need. It is still recommended to keep some sort of a record of student accounts shared among the staff of your program. So maybe just check with your manager or program coordinator for details. I also wanted to let you know that there is now a form, so you can request CEUs if you've completed any of the, I believe it's 4 or 5 professional development modules within BASE. And that link, I'll drop it in the chat in a moment, and it was in the newsletter article this morning. And I will also send it to you in a follow-up email. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Kathy.
Oh, here's the CEU. Sorry, I wasn't very good with the click thing here.
That's all right.
Hey, you guys, welcome everyone. Excited to introduce myself and introduce BASE and kind of get you started. So just quick introductions of myself. I live in Minnesota. I live up in the Brainerd Lakes area. So I don't know if there's anybody up in northern Minnesota. That's where I am. My background, I worked for Aiken Public Schools for about 15 years. My background is actually special ed, worked elementary, high school, then curriculum instruction, district testing and assessment, that kind of stuff. Left the public school system about 8 years ago now to work in the ed tech space as a consultant. So I have been with BASE Education. I was with another company prior, and I've been with BASE for the last 2 years. So very, very excited to meet you guys and work with you. And I just want you to know my contact information is on the screen. I will also be sending out follow-up emails from our conversation today, along with additional resources. And I want you to know that if you have any questions that come up, anything that I can do to help support you, Elizabeth is going to be a good contact, but please also feel free to reach out to me as well. My phone number is there. Email is truthfully the best way to get a hold of me, and because I can respond really quickly in between meetings and that kind of thing. So please feel free to reach out if questions come up. So before we jump in, I just have a question because we're a small group. So feel free, if you have questions, unmute yourself and just ask those questions. I do want to make sure all your questions get answered before we leave today. But I do have a question for the people that are online right now. How would you rate your BASE experience for using the program? 1, beginner. I really haven't used it at all. I'm not even quite sure what it is. 2, I've used it a little bit. I kind of know how to do things. Or 3, yep, I got it going on. I've used the program and pretty confident in everything. Excellent. So it looks like most of the people here are kind of 1s and 2s. That's perfect. So what I was thinking about doing today, and Elizabeth and I had kind of met and talked about what should be the focuses. We only have an hour, so how can we be respectful of that time and get the most out of it? So we're going to start out with kind of that BASE overview. What is it? What do you have access to? How can people in your program utilize the BASE program? Talking a little bit about instructional practices. We're going to talk about BASE content, so you have an understanding of what you have access to. Then we're going to, if possible, we're a small enough group, so I think this will work. We're going to get you logged into the program, looking at some of the BASE content, talk about how to add students into the system and how to kind of manage those enrollments, how to assign content, and those kind of things. So we're going to kind of push through and get a lot of stuff done. I'm so glad that we're recording this session because you'll be able to come back and watch the session. Because again, like this training is typically 2.5 hours. So we're going to kind of condense it and kind of get you as much as we can. But if you have questions, please feel free to ask. I will also stay on the line after our time. We're going 3:30 to 4:30. I'll stay on the line at 4:30, after 4:30. And if anybody wants to just hang out and kind of ask questions and do some troubleshooting, I'm available for that as well. So before we jump in and kind of talk about what BASE is, I would love for you just to take a moment to think about the young adults, the students, or the adults that you work with in your programs, and think about what do they struggle with. And I know a lot of the students that you're working with are getting their GED, or maybe they're new to America. What are some things that you see they're dealing with or struggling with? And if you could put your ideas or thoughts in the chat box, that'd be great. Just going to give you about 30 seconds. Time management, navigating on a computer. Yes, they can access space on the phone. Struggles with disability, so maybe some vision of self. Culture shock, missing their home countries. Yeah. So dealing with life changes, lots of life changes. Family pressures, responsibilities, time management. Excellent, excellent. Students with trauma. Okay, super. Well, not super. Thank you for answering that. That's always a bad thing. Super. No, I didn't mean it that way. So let's talk about some of those things and what does BASE have to offer to help students better understand themselves, maybe develop some skills and some strategies to deal with some of those pressures, to deal with those stresses, to be able to articulate what their trauma is and understand how that trauma is affecting them emotionally. And that's kind of the starting point of what BASE can do. So I have this Padlet I'm going to share. I'm going to put this in the chat box for you all. It's a link to this Padlet. So I have the opportunity to work with schools coast to coast. And I work with a lot of different programs, a lot of different schools, and I am learning so much. My toolbox of ideas is continually being filled, and I love it. And so with that, I decided to put together this training resource page for all the schools that I work with and support. And I'm taking ideas that I hear from other schools and I'm adding to this. So this BASE training resources for you is kind of everything and anything BASE. And I use it a lot in my trainings, but feel free after today to go in and take a deeper dive into the program. Now, because most of you are brand new to BASE, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show this quick little video because I think it does a really nice job kind of giving you a quick overview of BASE for those who are brand new to it. So I'm hitting the sound right now. Let me know if you are unable to hear this.
Your homework for tonight. Stop it!
So this would be a sample of a question for your junior high, senior high, or, your adults. A sample question that'd be asked in one of the modules. Everything can be translated, read aloud in translation, and there's voice to text, so they can speak and it'll type.
Welcome to BASE Education, the only clinically developed social-emotional learning program that provides a quiet, private, and safe space for students to share and reflect. BASE was created to offer students an outlet for personal growth. Through its quiet design, BASE provides students an introspective space to reflect on their lives without the noise and distractions of everyday life that prevents them from focusing on themselves. The respectful, therapeutic approach encourages students to make discoveries about themselves while giving them a sense of hope about their future. Every element, down to the smallest detail, has been built with the student's experience in mind. Vivid imagery is carefully selected to illustrate concepts and guide them through storytelling. The calming design allows for thoughts to be deeply explored. Each screen contains minimal text and is designed to actively engage the emotion center of the brain. The result is a non-academic look and feel to evoke optimal engagement. BASE Education's unique model gives students autonomy to share, yet provides a way for educators to quickly connect with and understand their students better. BASE Education is the only SEL program with the capacity to be used fully online or in the classroom and can track potentially harmful language with real-time response monitoring. Given the enormous challenges in the instructional day, educators rarely have the time and resources to give every student the one-on-one attention they deserve. BASE makes it possible for educators to know their students at a deeper level, hear their stories, and provide them with the individualized support they each need. The human element is so important, and BASE doesn't seek to replace this. Rather, BASE provides an efficient pathway for educators to learn more about their students. Students need committed adults who are willing to work with them and provide insight into their lives. Students who use BASE report feeling cared for and heard. Effective social-emotional learning support cannot be a box-checking exercise. BASE Education believes students deserve to experience growth in the best way possible, and educators deserve to have the tools that give them a leg up when supporting their students. Whether it's used in the classroom for group instruction or one-on-one online, BASE is a proven CASEL-approved solution to meet the complex social, emotional, and mental health needs of today's students. We are here to help you empower your students and prepare them for life's journey.
All right. So I like to show that because it just kind of gives you a quick overview. So on this column, there are additional videos that you can feel free to take a look at. Educators kind of talking about how they use the program. BASE was actually started. Our founder, Robin Glenn, was a trained mental health therapist. Just a quick story. She was working in the Denver school district with at-risk youth, had a situation, a girl, her name is Taylor, was caught with marijuana. She was in in-school suspension. The girl actually, Taylor reached out to ask for help, and Robin wasn't able to get to her. And kind of long story short, nobody really knew how much she was struggling. She was a good kid, good grades, didn't get in trouble, seemed to have a good friend network, but was really struggling. And so when she was sitting in ISS by herself, she had all these negative thoughts, and she ended up going home and dying by suicide. And so Robin said, I need to create a program that helps students understand, one, you're not defined by your mistakes, that to give them a voice, to ask for help, to give them some tools to better understand themselves, and maybe some strategies to better deal with the stresses that they're currently dealing with. And so that's how BASE was formed. And so when we look at the content that you guys have access to, I'm going to pull this up right now. Now you guys have access to all of the content in BASE. And so when we're going to get you, I'm going to get you in the program in a minute and kind of look a little deeper at all of the modules, but kind of that quick overview. these are all of the different modules that you and your students would have access to. And as I scroll down, if there's modules that kind of just make note of maybe some modules that stick out, write them down on a piece of paper, because I'm going to let you go in just a minute and kind of take a deeper dive. Based on your conversation when I asked about what are kids struggling with, anxiety, coping strategies, adjusting to today's new normal. They've had a lot of change, cultural implications, you know, that pressure of the family and living in the US, future goals, you know, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Life changes and adjustments, resilience, self-esteem, vision of self. So these are all of the 6th through 12th grade content. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, but the courses can be used in kind of a variety of ways. I'm going to just kind of pop up this next screen really quick, and then I'll go back to the other modules as well. But it can be used as class discussion. So on the left-hand side here, there's educator guides that go with all of the courses. You can present the courses, run some activities, a great way to help people kind of develop their the English language. There's activities. So it can be done all as a discussion. It can also be done all as a computer-based, where if you have kids that are online and not coming into your facilities, they can work online and kind of work through the course. Everything can be translated, like I said, and I'll show you those pieces that are in there. And they can share kind of their thoughts, and then you can follow up with that student. And then I have a lot of schools that are kind of doing the best of both worlds. So there's educator guides. So maybe they're kickstarting that conversation, doing some classes or doing some activities together, either in building or even online, you know, meeting as a group, kind of kickstarting that discussion, and then allowing time for students to work introspectively. And what we're finding is schools are saying, gosh, we're learning so much about our kids. I didn't know, you know, they were dealing with this or that kind of thing. So it's a great way to kind of get to know your kids as well, or your students. So you guys also have access to the professional development piece, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. I know Elizabeth kind of gave hint to, you can get some CEU credits, and there's 5 different modules that are available, talking about what is SEL. You kind of unpack your own understanding of yourself, and then talk about how to bring that understanding of SEL into your classroom. And then you also have access to all of the elementary content. And so the K-5 content, it is turned on. And I know most of you guys are working with adults, right? Or do you have, Elizabeth, do you have younger kids as well?
Typically the youngest would be 17 years old for ABE.
Okay. So you do have access to the elementary content that's all video based. And so you may or may not use it, but just know that it's there. And it could be if you have people that have young kids and they want to learn how to kind of instill vision of self in their children or whatever, but these are all video based that can be used as well. And then as I scroll down, you also have access to all of the substance use and misuse modules as well. And so there's like drug fact courses. What are they? But then it goes a little bit deeper into how does it affect your emotions? How does it affect your decision making? How does it affect your friendships and relationships, and understanding why kids, or why am I using, the kind of unpacking that piece. So you have access to all of the substance use things as well. All right. So on this is just all the different curriculum. All right. There's recorded webinars here where people are sharing out how they're using base navigation. So a lot of things that we're going to talk about today, here's the login, here's quick start guides, there's guides that you can load onto your phone. So that's all there. And then I'm going to just click on pathways. So ideas, how can we use BASE? So this is a really nice kind of handout where you start looking. It's like, okay, if we're looking at college and career readiness, here are courses that might be utilized. If we're looking at relationship information, so this kind of categorizes the different modules. All right, I'm just going to quickly go to the left. What's new information is here. How to introduce BASE to students. Parent information, if you're going to roll it out to parents. Educator information, instructional strategy ideas are all kind of in here as well. All right, so let's kind of jump in to your BASE program. All right, so I'm going to have you log in just a minute, but I want to give you kind of a quick overview to start, and then I'm going to give you some time to explore. So I'll talk about, if you haven't logged in yet, that's fine. I'll kind of show you how to log in just a minute. But once you log in, you're going to come to kind of a home page. You'll come in on the home page. But if you click on the modules, this allows me to see all of the courses that I have access to, all of the BASE modules that I have access to. And so if I click on the module and right here, selected by module types, if I click this little down arrow, if I want to see that elementary content, I can. It's all here. It's all video based. So you can see that little video. You just launch the video, you can watch it, and there's educator guides. I'm not going to spend much time on that because most of you are probably going to use this information. So this is kind of the high school content that you could use with adults as well. You'll notice there's a little pencil here. That means that it is interactive. So that means that students would log in, kind of share their thoughts and ideas as they kind of go through the module. But you can kind of see all of the modules that are here. So let's say there's maybe a certain behavior that I'm dealing with, or that our kids or my group is dealing with. If I go to the cultural issues and I click on that, it's going to suggest modules based on that behavior. So these would be good modules to kind of take a deeper dive in. Now, most of these sites have both the Middle East and the regular module turned on. So what's the difference between the two? Essentially, it's the same module. It's just that the Middle East is going to be more culturally reflective and culturally sensitive. So we've adjusted the images to be more reflective of the Middle East culture. We remove some topics, topics relating to sex, alcohol, and drugs. So we've kind of adjusted some of the content a little bit. But just to let you know that those modules are in there, and it's going to cover kind of the same, go through the same process, I guess, as the regular module. So kind of a quick overview of what the modules look like, and then I'm going to get you in the program. So I'm going to just, let's do, is there any course that you guys are like, yeah, I want to see that? You can unmute or put your information in the chat box. Or should I just pick one? Just pick one, Kathy. All right, so I'm gonna pick on this coping strategies right here. So when you are trying to figure out what do I want to do here? Resilience. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. There it is. When I go, gosh, I just want to kind of see what this course is and figure out how I want to present this to my kiddos. So the resilience course is right here. I can see it's interactive. If I hover over the eye, it's going to give you an overview of the course. And then it's also going to give you approximate time frame that students would take to go through that course. So that's under the eye. So from here, I can click on this educator resource guide, go to the high school, And if you're thinking about using this module in kind of that blended format, or maybe class discussion and then allow the students to work introspectively, this will help you do that. So I can see right here in this lesson guide, this is what the students are going to be able to know and do. So kind of the goals of the program, any vocabulary that needs to be addressed, materials needed. There's a build background, and all of our educator guides are set up the same way. So every time you kind of go in and look, there's some consistency there. So this build background allows you, kind of gives you some info as to why it's important, and it gives you a way to present it or introduce it to your students. So you can really just read this blue and have them do some discussions around it. Then as you scroll down, you'll be able to see what slides and kind of what questions are being asked in case you want to do any pre-teaching or pre-discussion before they go in and work independently. And then as I scroll down, there's a think, pair, share activity where you can have kids, your students pair up and do some activities around that. But this gives me a good idea of what questions are being asked then throughout the course. There's engage and learn activities that are here. And then as I scroll down, sorry, I don't mean to make you dizzy, there is a worksheet that goes with. So every one of our base modules have a worksheet that go with it as well that could be printed off and handed out, or create a fillable form and put it online, however you want to do that. I also have some yeah, great. I love that. And I also have some students that will take this worksheet and kind of turn it into a class activity. So they might throw a question out there and say, hey, go to your four corners. Do you think this, this, or this, or this, and have a conversation, you know, that kind of thing. So taking these ideas and just turning it into a class activity, and then giving the students opportunity to kind of introspectively work on their own. So lots of different options there. So what does the course look like? So I'm going to hit this launch course, and then you'll be able to see what the student experience is going to look like. So when students log in, I'll show you that student login in a minute. But once they click on the course to do the course, this is what it looks like. So not a lot of words on the screen, very much conversational feel. We don't want it to be academic feel. They hit the next button. That next button moves around. All of our courses go through the same process. What is it? So what is resilience? Why is it important? How resilient do you think you are? You know, so it kind of asks them about their thoughts. So once they know what it is, how do you relate to it? And then it'll go through some scenarios, different scenarios of teens and what they've gone through, and then some strategies kind of moving forward, ideas. And then at the very end, they have the kids kind of identify, what strategy are you going to work on? What do you think you need to do to become more resilient? So it kind of takes them through that, understanding what it is, how do I relate to it, what are scenarios that kids go through, what are strategies that I can use. So this next button moves around, but there's this toolbar that follows students wherever they go. So right here, I can translate into 74 different languages. So they're all here. So if I click on that, it will translate. And then once I do that, it will stay translated. So they don't have to hit the translate button on every page. It will stay translated. So if I go down here and I click on this speaker, it will read it aloud. Now, I know it reads in English, I know it reads in Spanish, and I know it reads in French pretty well. I don't know about Somali, if it reads well in Somali or some of the other languages. So I would love to get that feedback as you're working with people. let me know how the translations are for them in their language that they're comfortable with. Or maybe you prefer them to do it in English, because I know that's kind of the thing, right? They're working on building those English skills. So it can be read aloud. If I click on that and then hit the next button, every page will be read aloud. Let me go up to, all right, so what do you think resilience means? This is a white box. When they type in this white box, if they type something in, erase it, and type something else, the system is going to capture everything that's being typed into the program. If they type something that gives an idea that they might hurt themselves, somebody else, or be in a potentially dangerous situation, it's going to create a fire word alert and send an email alert to whoever at your site is set up to receive those alerts. And we're going to be talking about that in a little bit when we get into your school settings. But that is available. If they are typing in English, it'll read the fire word alerts. If they are typing in Spanish, it's not going to read the fire word alerts. It only will read it in English. There is also, if I go to this little speaker here, they can talk into the microphone and it will type everything that the student says. So there is the speech to text piece as well. So I don't know. I mean, they could type in their, yeah. Anyway, so that's available. Any questions so far? All right. So I'm going to click on this help button. There's also a help button here. So if a student is working through a module and maybe it's bringing up past trauma, or they just need to talk to somebody, they can type kind of what's going on and select a time frame. And this will also send an alert to whoever is at your site that has those alerts on, an email alert letting you know that they want to talk to somebody. So that help button is there as well. There's also a take a break, and I'll let you guys kind of play around with this. There's no timer on it, but students can kind of go in and just, this is for de-escalation if they're feeling very anxious or very stressed out. These are kind of mind-numbing exercises that they can kind of relax before they go back and work. And then students can also have music playing in the background. And the music is all very intentional, 150 beats and less. No words, again, trying to relax so that that brain can process and problem solve, not excite emotion. All right, so there was a question that came in. Security, students are typing confidential things. Who can access this? Excellent, excellent question. So the people that are at your site, so if I pick on like Central Minnesota, I don't think there's any students. All right, cool. So the people that have access to the site, these supervisors will be able to see student responses. So that is one thing. If you are, you know, you look at these teachers, and if some teachers aren't here anymore, or they really don't need access to the program, let Elizabeth know, because she'll be able to go in and she'll be able to kind of archive them so that they won't have access. So any adults that are on your site, they will have access to be able to see the student information. If you are in a situation where you're doing counseling and you've got some pretty heavy stuff and you're doing more therapeutic counseling, we can talk after about setting up private rooms where nobody can see anything except for whoever set up the private room. So if you do need to lock it down, we can talk more later about that. But most of the stuff is pretty light. Anyway, so great question though. Last thing I'm going to say, and write this down as a to-do. So to-do item. and I will also write this down as a to-do item and send it out in my notes. When students first log in, they're going to have to go through a welcome course, a welcome module. So the welcome module will automatically pop up. It'll automatically be there. They have to take it. They have to do that once a year. So what I would suggest is if you go to your modules, and you type in welcome, the welcome module will pop up. You hit launch course and go through this course. So you have an understanding of what the students are going to see the first time they log in. I also encourage people as they go through this welcome course, if there's any positive affirmations as to why should I be doing base? Write those down and you can kind of create your 30-second elevator pitch. So they're going to get an information as to why it's important, what's their benefit. It also lets them know that when they type in there, your information is protected and private, and so make sure that your systems are set up, that people aren't digging in and looking at stuff that they're not supposed to look at, but just the adults that have access to the program will be able to see it. So it kind of lets them know, and then they have to sign off on it. That, yep, I know that, if I say something that gives an idea that I might hurt myself, somebody else, that, it turns into a reporting mandate type thing. But yeah, definitely go through this welcome course to kind of build your knowledge as to what the students will be doing. Any questions on that welcome course? All right. Perfect. So do you guys all know how to log into BASE? Do you have your BASE logins? Yes or no? Okay. Excellent. So I think what I'm going to do, because it's already 10 after 4, I will make sure, that everybody has their login information. And I'm going to just kind of plug forward and show you things. And then you can take this video and then actually have the video playing and then go in and continue to explore. I hope that's okay. There's a lot of things I want to talk about. So I think we're going to kind of just plug forward, and I'm not going to have you guys log in at this point due to time, but we'll make sure follow-up information that you have your login information. So a couple other things that I want to point out. If you are presenting this content, right here it says instructional version. If I click on this, oops. Sorry, I have to get rid of the welcome course. These are, you see right here, instructional version. These are the instructional version courses. So when the instructional version course, there are no white boxes. So if you are going to present this content to students to kind of introduce and kickstart that discussion, or, tie it in with your ELA lessons, you want to use the instructional version. The easiest way to do that is right up here. There is a learner portal. So if I click on the learner portal, it's going to take me to student view. And I can click on the library, and then I have access to all of the modules. So if I wanted to do let's do character traits. Notice this says instructional version. I can just click on that, and now I can present to my students, and we can kind of talk about a few things. I can use that educator guide to introduce, and I can click on a few slides to kind of set things up. But notice here, what is your definition of character traits? In the interactive version, students would have to type in. So if you're using that, you would have to type in before you can move to the next. Here, you can just pose the question and encourage people to talk and share those kind of things. And then after class is over or whatever, you could encourage them to log in and work more introspectively through the module. So this instructional version is a great way to do that. So now if I want to go back to the admin portal, I just click right down here, the admin portal, and I go back to my admin portal. Okay, so this little blue icon lets you go with. The nice thing about the blue icon is if you get partway through the course and didn't finish the course, look at that, character traits is right here. So I can click on it and we can continue our discussion where we left off. If you do the launch on a regular, and if you launch it here, or if you even launch it here, it's not going to save. You can present content, but when you come back tomorrow or the next day, you're going to have to start all over. So play around with this little blue cap icon up here. All right, a couple other things that you guys also have access to, just an FYI, as I go up here. Let's say we want to do that professional development. Okay, I want to get my CEUs. Again, you can go to that learner portal and access it through the learner portal, and it'll save your work. Your work will be saved if you click here, okay? And then you also have access to wellness. The wellness is, you can use it however you want, but we're just finding professionals across the US to create videos around certain topics. And this is really meant for adults. So you could share it with the adults in your program. You could share it with other educators, those kind of things. So feel free to use those as well. All right. Any questions at this point? I know I'm just firing a lot of stuff at you. All right. So next up, how do we create student logins? How do we assign content? What does student view really look like? Those are things I'm going to talk about next. Here we go. All right. Okay. So when you log into Base for the first time, I'm bringing this up here. You're going to log in. It's login.base.education. So I will put that quick link in the chat box for you if anybody wants to kind of save it. So login.base.education, I put the quick link in. You can use your full email address is going to be your username. I think that's what most of the people are on the site, so it should work. If you have a current login, if you put in your full email address, that's your username. And then there'll be a thing here that says click to reset your password. So if you click on that, it will send you an email and allow you to reset your password. So if you don't know what you're not quite sure how to log in, try this first. See if you can reset your password. If you're not able to reset your password, definitely send Elizabeth an email, or you can send me an email and I can kind of go in there and do some troubleshooting for you if needed. All right. So So once you log in, you're going to come in on your home screen. And so what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about how do we create students in the system and how do we assign content. So we said, if you click on the users tab, if I click on the users tab, and then I go right over here to user actions, and I hit create user. So it's pretty easy to do. So users, user actions, create users. And then right here, you'll see it says role. If I scroll down and I click on student, then I can put in the student's email address and it will automatically self-populate the email address as the user. So you have to have a current email address. I would imagine most of your students have email addresses. Is that true or not? Okay, excellent. And then you put in a password. You can put in any password you want. You could have your students then reset the password like I suggested before, if needed. Put in their first and last name, and then just hit create, and then you have a student. Okay, so user actions, and then you can create a student. So that's how you do it manually, one by one by one. If by chance you're like, Kathy, I got 60 people in my program, I don't want to add 60 people individually, I'm going to ask you to reach out to me and I can send you a CSV file and I can do a upload for you if you want to do that. All right. So once we have the users in the system, how do we assign content to those students? How do we assign content to the students? And so I want to talk a little bit about what rooms are. So rooms allow you to kind of two things. One, I can create a room and put all of the students in there and not assign any content, but maybe give them some voice and choice in what they want to do. So what does that look like, Kathy? So I'm logged in as a student right now. And so if we have a student that is in a room, I can see the room here, U-turn. And then as I scroll down, I can see these modules have been assigned to the student, okay? Now you can create a room, but don't assign any content. Give them some voice and choice. And the students can go over here to the library and they can pick what modules they want to do. So they're going to have access to all of the student modules. You have control over what modules the students see. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute under the settings. So you can control what students see. So I can create a room, put students in, don't put any content. And then what happens here, so I've got 24 students, no modules, but when I click on that room, then I'm able to see all of the modules that they're working on. And I can go in, I can click on that student. I can view their module progress so I can see what modules they worked on. I can open up and I can look at their responses, okay? There's unreviewed fire words. I can click on that and I can quickly look at those fire words as well. Okay, so no modules means I can see all of the courses that they're doing in every other room or if they click on the library. I can also create a room and put content in it. So if you look here, I've got 4 students and I've assigned 3 modules. So if I click on that, now I'm able to see the 3 modules and I can see what the students are working on in that room. I'm only going to see the responses from these 3 modules. So if I've assigned the anger management, I can go in and I can click on view student responses. And I'm going to see my students and then all of their responses just for that anger management course. Okay, so rooms to see what students are doing in other places, or I can physically assign modules to a student. So how do I create a room? So in this Padlet, just kind of an FYI, I hope your brains aren't exploding. But in this Padlet, I have a snapshot guide that I have created. So everything I'm showing you, there's info here. But under base navigation, if I scroll down, there's a snapshot guide I created for base rooms. It's right here. So how do I create a room? I click on the Home tab. It's very easy. I click on the Home tab, and there'll be if you have not created a room, there'll be a little tab here that says, let's get started in base. I've created a room, so I'm going to scroll all the way down to create another room. And notice there's 4 steps. So I just name my room, whatever I want to name it. I pick a room image. If I want to receive the fireword alerts from the students that are in my room, I'd have this checked. So I will get an email alert from any of the students in my room. If I want to make my room public, I can click here and that will make my room public. What does that mean? So what that means is when a student logs in, there's this join a room feature. And so if I click on that join a room, any rooms that are public, I can click on that room and ask to be a part of that room. So sometimes I have schools that will create rooms by certain behaviors or certain, whatever scenarios. And then people can pick, do I want to go to this room or this room or this room? And then they click and ask to be a part of it. Notice I can see who created the room. I can see the room name. I can see how many modules are in that room. As a student, I do not see who else is in that room. Okay. I just know that if I click on this, I'm going to get access to those 7 modules. Whoever created that room has to allow that student into the room. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. It's very easy. So you can make the rooms public. I can go to the next. And then any students that are in my site will pop up here and I can search for them or I can click and add them to the room. Rooms are not time bound. Rooms are fluid. You can add students, add content, get rid of students, get rid of content, and all of that. If I'm here and I'm like, oh, May is not in here and I forgot to add her. Right here is a little plus sign. I can click on that plus sign and I can quickly add May into the program, hit create, and now I've added her into the base program. So she now has an active login. So if the students aren't here and you need to add them, you can click right here. Here are my students. I hit next. Now I'm going to add my modules. I can search for my modules and add modules. You can add as many as you want in here. Because again, everything can be adjusted. I hit the next button. So I've got 3 students, 5 modules, alerts are on, and I'm going to create. So everything is adjustable, right? So here's my room. Oh no, I named it wrong, or I got to add students. I can click on the room. And when I click on the room, I can go over here to edit, this little tab here, edits. I can change the name to whatever I want. Oh, I don't want firewords, or I want to make it public. You can adjust any of that. I can add and remove students. I got new students. So I just click on this add remove tab, and now I can add more students into my room, or I can remove students. Recommended modules. I have 5. Oh, too many modules. If I click on the add and remove, I can get rid of stuff. I can hit save, or I can add. Also, you could create for the end of the year, say we're going to go through these 3 modules, but I don't want people to have access to all 3. I can hide the modules. Oops. I can hide the modules from the students. Well, that was a good example, huh? All right, let me get back there. So if I click on the modules, I can click on this, make visible or hide it. So I can hide. So right now, when the students log in, the only module they're going to see is this adrenaline module. And then next week, I can open up the other one. If I want to see their responses, I can launch the course from here. I can look at the educator guide. So all the information is right here. All right. I can also delete this room. Now, one thing I want to say about rooms is if I delete a room, so let's say students have done work, I delete the room, it does not delete any student data. The student data stays with the student. The room is just a holder. So you can delete that room. The room is gone, but any work that the student did is still with the student. They just will not have, the room will no longer show up on their dashboard and they won't have any content assigned to them. So I hope that makes sense. Oh, how are you doing? I hope you guys are doing okay. If any questions come up, just let me know. The last thing I want to mention, is the settings tab. So as you are thinking about your students, here, I'm going to go up to the top. As you're thinking about your students, and boy, maybe I want to use the library, but I really don't want them to have access to all of this content. Or maybe there's some courses that just are not appropriate that I don't want them to have free access to. Let Elizabeth know, or Elizabeth, you and I can have further conversations too. But an admin has the ability to adjust what students are seeing in their library. So if you just need an admin can click on the settings, and if I go to student access, I can control right here is the middle school, high school collection. I can open this up and I can turn stuff on or off for that free access to the library. Okay, so just know that that's available to that. Elizabeth, anything you want to say about that if they want to adjust their library? Any thoughts, or we can get more information sent out to them?
Yeah, it's probably easiest if you just email the distance learning help desk, and then I can give the appropriate level of permission to the right person for your program.
Perfect. Perfect. Oh, hours of accessibility. That's the other thing I want to talk about. So right now, I think everything is open, and that's fine for your programs. But just kind of an FYI is, let's say you don't want kids, or you don't want your students, I keep saying kids, my apologies. You don't want your students to have free access all the time, because on Sunday at 3 in the morning, the help alerts will come through and I won't see them. Because students right now have 24/7 access, which is fine. I think one thing you need to let them know is, where do I find help? Right? So if it's a Saturday night, and I feel like I need to talk to somebody, I need help, where can I go? One thing that I want to let you know is at the end of every module, there is the 988 number. So you could take a screenshot of that 988 number and say, if you're working in the base program and you feel like you need to talk to somebody, or you really got a lot going on, here is a number that you can call. Because if you hit the help button on a Sunday or a Saturday, we won't necessarily see that help alert. So if it's during business hours, we'll see it and we'll be able to respond. But if it's outside of business hours, this is the number you should use. So, and I will kind of, I'll maybe add more information on my follow-up notes on that. But you can kind of customize it for your site. Any questions on that? All right. Oh, wow. Look at that. It's 4:30. All right. So I know there is a lot. I just threw a ton of information. Before you leave, I would love for you just to put some thoughts in the chat box of what did you like? What might you how you think you might use the program, or what just kind of share some of your thoughts. And I'm going to type those up and send those out in follow-up notes. So what are your thoughts? How might you use this? And then you can go. And if you want to stay and just chat with me, you can feel free to do that. So while you are typing that up, I'm going to kind of put my last slide up, and then we'll turn off the recording in a minute. And if anybody wants to stay and just do some troubleshooting, I'm here. So this is my contact information. I am here to help. Let me know how I can help. Thank you guys so very much for coming in today. I really appreciate it.